For Aries rising and or moon sign for June 2023. Aries, your ruling planet Mars is moving through Cancer, your fourth house sign of the home. And this is its sign of weakness. Mars doesn't do so well in Cancer, as feelings have to be taken into consideration more than action. And if feelings are dictating actions, then you might not always feel like doing something you maybe need to do. And it's important to recognize when to do something and when to stop pushing. If you're overcompensating for any sense of lack of energy or drive or direction, that you're not pushing even harder than you would have otherwise, creating more problems. But at the same time, it's a good thing not to overdo this sort of doing no thing either, because if you do nothing and you feel this energy, this angst of Mars and Cancer build up, it could lead to all kinds of frustrations. So getting a balance right will be key here, Aries, and in any kind of engagement with anyone, especially in the home environment, that would be especially important. Now, all the planets in your first sign continue to transit, including the Jupiter Rahu conjunction, which at the beginning of June is an exact conjunction pretty much. So this is confusing potentially for you and not a clear sense of who you are, what you're doing at this point when you add this to the Mars debilitation. So you might not be very clear about what you're doing, where you're going in life. You might not be very clear about many things in life. Jupiter, your ninth and 12th Lord, is very much about travel for you. If you were to travel at this time, because like I said, Mars in Cancer is a time to kick back a bit more, and it would be a great time for a holiday in one sense. But travel at this time with Jupiter Rahu, could bring great insights. Absolutely. Could bring a sense of new beginnings for you as well. But even just staying at home, I think, and traveling in other ways in your mind, in terms of delving into some sort of philosophy or spirituality, or reading some book that you're just can get completely engrossed in and go on a journey in a book. That could be a good expression of this without having to go anywhere. Because if you go anywhere, of course, the potential for that and many holidays can be very depleting, and people after a holiday come home and need another holiday. So thinking about these things, I would say in June, Aries, not overdoing it essentially is what I'm saying in anything you do, whether it's traveling, whether it's staying at home and just sort of stewing, you don't want to overdo that either. Whatever it is, just be mindful of your energy. The sun is moving through your second sign for the first half of June, and then into your third sign, Gemini, in the second half, where we have a new moon by the end of June. And this is a time to, engage more with people around you, to travel about more, especially by the end of June, more so. So I'll just show you that here. This is the uh, transit of the sun by mid-month. Sun moves into Gemini. Mercury is moving very swiftly through your second sign. It's finally moving out of Aries, your sign. And in your second sign is very much about family dynamics. And now Sun in the third sign, Gemini, Mercury sign, is very much about engagement with others and traveling about and taking short journeys, as opposed to those longer journeys that are indicated by Jupiter and the ninth and 12th Lord. So the potential for traveling, I think, is really heightened in your chart. In other words, Aries, and just taking a break, even if you don't go on a long journey. So Aries, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time. For Taurus rising and or moon sign for June 2023. Taurus, your ruler Venus has just moved into Cancer to meet with Mars in your third sign. And this is a good time to be sort of traveling about, I would say, and to enjoy sort of everyday interactions and engagements with other people. Um, Pluto is opposite your ruler, and that is exact by June 5th. And so there's that dynamic to deal with. So there could be some sort of power struggle going on, or sort of relationship dynamic that is not very clear. Pluto is never clear, but Pluto in your ninth house itself of travel, of more long distance travel, can show unexpected turn of events and all of that you have to be mindful of. But certainly Venus and Mars, a very passionate duo in your third house, can be a very enjoyable time for engaging with others and just taking some short trips, at least, even if it weren't long term or long distance travel. The sun is moving through your sign for the first half of June and then moves into Gemini, your second sign, by the second half. And so this is an energizing time of year. And every, year at this time, from mid-May until mid-June, the sun is energizing you again. The sun is your fourth lord, so it's very much about happiness, home and settings, and thinking about taking some time out as well to re-energize. When you think about the sun's energizing, revitalizing quality, you can think of that in terms of just spending some time on a holiday or at home and just kicking back and enjoying yourself. There are a lot of things in June that indicate these kinds of things for most of the signs, but especially your sign, Taurus. Venus is now in Cancer, as I mentioned, in your third sign. And this is really a time to be mindful of what Cancer is, and Leo, the subsequent sign, the third and fourth signs, your effort, your communication with everyone, including more especially your neighbors and siblings, and then moving into your home environment in Leo. And the reason I say this is because in June, by the 19th, Venus will move beyond this point that it will actually backtrack towards and move back towards by September. And so from July until September, we have this Venus retrograde. So Venus is going to begin its retrograde in Leo, your fourth house, the home. It's going to move back into your third house in Cancer, and it's going to move back then into the fourth house again. So back and forth between the third and fourth house, thinking about not just your, travel and home and all of that, thinking about, how you go about getting what you want, and what do you want, and what makes you happy, and what do you value. Venus retrograde would represent these kinds of themes in your third and fourth houses. I'll talk more about that in the coming months, but it's setting it up now in June in many ways because it's moving into its what is called the shadow phase. And so it's probably going to highlight some of these themes in understanding how you get what you want, and then again, essentially, what do you want? What would make you happy? The other thing to note is the gathering of planets that continue in your 12th house, which can be expressed through, time away and retreat and long distance travel more so. And the Jupiter Rahu conjunction at the beginning of June is more exact. So there could be some issues there, maybe some confusion around how to progress in that area. Finances and so on would be very much indicated by Jupiter also for you. So its conjunction with Rahu isn't very clear around earnings and finances and all of those things you're having to deal with now. So thinking about that in terms of maybe in June, and especially the beginning of June, maybe taking a step back from that as well, and making just maybe not taking any major decisions on any of those financial concerns, because Jupiter and Rahu conjoined can be a bit like not getting the full facts, or not being clear about something, or someone not being clear about something somewhere along the chain, and you then taking some advice, ill-conceived advice, perhaps even with Jupiter Rahu. So I would definitely sort of halt anything like that around the beginning of June, if possible, until Jupiter and Rahu sort of move further apart. But otherwise, like I said, June is very much a time to enjoy some travel, some socializing, some downtime even, and not overdoing anything. And again, maybe not making any major decisions about financial concerns. So, Taurus, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time. Or Gemini rising and or moon sign for June 2023. Gemini, your ruling planet, Mercury, is about to finish up in Aries. By the 7th of June, it will move into Taurus. So finally moving out of a sign it's been in for a longer than usual period because of its retrograde. So reassessing all of your long-term goals and plans and ambitions in the last few weeks would have been a key consideration here, as well as your engagement socially and with friends and groups and all of that. And now it's moving into your 12th house. So it's about time to sort of finish something up here. And it's not a long time to do so, because it's going to zip through Taurus, your 12th sign, from the 7th. And by the 24th of June, it's going to enter your sign. And in its sign of, dexterity and articulation and excitement and stimulation and travel and engagement and a lot a stronger position for you by the end of June for sure, Gemini. Until then, while Mercury, your ruler, moves through your 12th sign for a very brief period again, remember, but it is a time to just maybe take some time out. And I'm saying this to a lot of the signs because it is a sort of kickback sort of month anyway, with Mars in Cancer, Venus joining it, and a kind of a time to take some time out for sure. It's more so the case for you, Gemini, because your Lord is in the 12th sign. So the 12th sign can show going on retreat or needing a retreat, even if you don't go on one. Maybe taking long distance travel, maybe just taking a step back, a step out of your day-to-day life to kind of just kick back a bit and let go a little bit more. If you're trying to get all on your plans and get, moving on things at this point, Mercury in the 12th house isn't very clear. And 12th house, for example, is about sleep, and Mercury is very stimulating, and it might not even let you sleep fully. So that's why it's another reason perhaps to kind of just take some time out, take some take some more rest, I would say. So that's Mercury in your 12th house, which is also where the sun is for the first half of June. And then by the second half of June, we have the sun move into your sign. And the sun in your sign by the second half of June is an important time to really rejuvenate yourself, to recharge yourself. So if you show you that here, the sun moves in by the 15th. And for the latter part of June, therefore, and especially then when Mercury, your ruler, moves into your sign, then by the 24th, this is a great time to recharge. Really, Sun is your third lord. It's all about confidence, vitality, and energy. And Mercury is your lord and fourth lord, and about happiness and vigor and energy and stimulation. And so this can be really exciting by the end of June for you, Gemini. And although Mars continues towards its degree of debilitation in Cancer in the second sign, with Venus here very closely conjunct Mars, that kind of very passionate mix of energies there is something to be mindful of, not depleting your energies also in any kind of, or even financially not depleting yourself, I would say, because Venus, your 12th lord in your second house of money and family and all of those things. Be really mindful if you are enjoying yourself that you don't overdo that, you don't overspend. But certainly this is a time to enjoy by the end of June, I would say, Gemini. I just want to highlight the Jupiter-Rahu conjunction, that ongoing dance between Jupiter-Rahu at the beginning of June. They are exact and they start to move apart. And by the middle of June onwards, I think, things can start to get clearer. From the beginning of June, it might not be so clear. So relationships and work and all of those kinds of issues and earnings around work and all of that might be an issue, especially again with Mars, the 11th lord of earnings, in debilitation in its weakest sign in June. So, maybe not being very clear about those things, work and relationships and ambitions and all of that. But again, maybe just thinking about this as a more personal time to engage with just enjoyable things, and a holiday or taking some time out, taking a trip, taking a retreat. It's probably a better month for those kinds of things. So Gemini, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time. For Cancer rising and or moon sign for June 2023. Cancer, you're experiencing a lot of energy, potentially with Mars moving through your sign. Although Mars is said to be debilitated in Cancer, Mars is a very important planet for you. So this can give you an energy boost. Now, the thing is that oftentimes if Mars isn't expressed in a more direct way, and it's not expressed in a direct way, oftentimes in Cancer, it's like meanders a lot more, then it could actually feel like the opposite of that. It could actually feel like your energy is depleted. But in a way, thinking about this as like energy that's not expressed it might feel like you don't have the energy. But when you start to express some energy, when you start to feel energized and you use that to give yourself more energy, in other words, you might be able to channel this Mars in a more effective way for you to get going. And of course, you have to keep that in balance as well, because if you overdo anything, then you might end up feeling more depleted, because Mars in Cancer feels that way generally. So you're probably one of the only signs that actually could really channel this Mars in a way that energizes you, as long as you keep it in balance, keep it in check. Venus also moves into your sign from the beginning of June. It's in your sign and continues throughout June, meeting with Mars, getting very closely conjunct by the end of June. And so this could be a further depletion in one way as well. If you're having a socializing, really overdoing it socializing, or dealing with any kind of friends or any kind of indulgences as well. Venus and Mars is a really sort of passionate mix. Um, and any kind of indulgence could you end up feeling like you're more depleted, in fact. So being really mindful of your indulgences, of your engagements socially or otherwise, and maybe taking some time out as well. Venus, your fourth lord, with Mars in your sign, maybe just enjoying something that gives you energy as opposed to something that depletes your energy. The sun moves through your 11th sign for the first half of the month and then into your 12th sign by the latter half of June. So thinking about your energy in terms of, and your spend as well, energy, and think about money and energy, and, time is money and all of that. When you think about the energy you put into something, thinking about this kind of earning and spending dynamic as well now, with the sun moving through your 11th into your 12th. Um, and the energy that can be better spent elsewhere when you think about it. What do you need to end in many ways in your life? Because as the sun is your 12th, or in your 12th house, your second lord in your 12th house, that could show, a need to kind of spend more at this time, or that you are spending more, again, whether money or energy, and thinking about, how much you've got to spend. And again, maybe not overdoing that impulse. Mercury is zipping through Taurus and moves into the 12th sign also by the end of the month. So Mercury's joining the sun in your 12th sign. And again, in this case, whereas the sun is more probably about money and finances and resources and that being spent and energy being spent, Mercury is about your effort, and the effort you put into anything, and this give and take that has to occur. And so that moving into your 12th sign by the end of June as well is showing this need to sort of um, be mindful of the spending, I would say. Again, energy or money. The ongoing Jupiter Rahu conjunction in your 10th house of work, your career, your prospects, especially by the beginning of June, is not very clear because they're exactly conjunct, and they start to break apart by mid-June into the end of June. So things might start to come clear more so by the end of June. It's a process, I would say, in June for you in terms of your work, in terms of your direction in life, even. So thinking about those kinds of dynamics, while it is a time to enjoy some things for sure, it's a time not to overindulge or overdo anything and not overspend, while you're trying to figure out these kind of these work dynamics, things that are going on in your professional life, as well as your personal life. So thinking about getting a balance right, essentially, is what I'm saying. So Cancer, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time. For Leo rising and or moon sign for June 2023, Leo, your ruler, the sun, is moving through your 10th house sign for the first half of June and then moves into your 11th sign by the second half. And so this is very much about your direction in life, what you're doing, your career, and what you gain from that. And thinking about that transition now in June, as it is the case every June, is something to ponder. What is it you're doing? How much energy are you putting into that? How much are you getting out of it? And energy is certainly a key focal point here for you, Leo, in June, because Mars, the planet of energy, is in your 12th sign in debilitation, in its weakest sign. So you might be feeling maybe a lack here. And because Mars is a very important planet for you, it's your 4th and 9th lord, so very much around home and travel, very much around mother and father dynamics. Thinking about, not being very clear about those things, or not seeing a way forward at this point, or having to surrender something or sacrifice something or spend something around something. For example, if you have to go on a holiday and you spend a lot of money, thinking about the money and the energy that you're spending at this point because of Mars. Mars in Cancer can be a bit like a thorn in your side, or like a pebble in your foot, more appropriately in the 12th house, where it's just that little sort of niggly thing that's, getting to you, even though it's a lovely day and everything is enjoyable and you might be on a holiday, which the 12th house can certainly be. The 4th and 9th lord in the 12th house could certainly be a really nice retreat somewhere. But it's that kind of, again, that niggly sort of thing that bee or that wasp, that you're trying to enjoy a lovely picnic somewhere. It's just that one thing that's annoying you. That's Mars and Cancer in the 12th house. But equally, we might say that you might not even be aware of that thing that's annoying you. You might not be aware, but there's a sense of this underlying sort of tension um, that is there in June. And so, Leo, it's really important that you are mindful of that and not overreacting to that, and tracing back where that tension is. Now, again, whether it's parents' relationships or home travel, any kind of issue around that, practically you can deal with that because you can see it. But if it's something that's not quite clear and it's coming out in your sleep, for example, the 12th house Mars could be like having very sort of vivid dreams and having colorful dreams and these kinds of things. And it's like you're dreaming a lot and maybe you haven't really slept really deeply. Thinking about this with Mars, now with Venus also your 10th and 3rd lord moving into your 12th house, any actions that you're taking now, they just might not seem to pay off really clearly. Venus and Mars is definitely a passionate mix of energies, but when you put it in the 12th house, Leo, this is maybe not like, it's just not giving you what you think you want, I would say. It's just not very clear. But again, it could be very enjoyable. And again, I would say it's a time to finish things. It's a time to maybe let go of things, to sacrifice things. The 12th house in that way is a more positive thing when you're willing to let go, when you're willing to give. If you're trying to hold on and you're trying to be very clear about your direction and what you're doing and get results and get immediate results, it might be a bit frustrating for you in June. On top of that, then, all of these planets that were in Aries and continue in Aries in June, including the exact conjunction of Jupiter and Rahu in your 9th sign of travel, of study, of broader minded things, higher minded things, is not very clear. So if you're having to make a decision, an important decision around anything at this time, I would perhaps postpone it from the beginning of June, maybe to the latter part of June, where things can become more clear as Jupiter and Rahu break up. While they're together, there isn't just a lot of clarity around things. So any kind of decisions that you have to make, especially because Jupiter rules your 5th and 8th houses in your 9th house, this could be financial. But any kind of decisions you have to make, which is 5th house in the 9th, 5th lord in the 9th, that's very much about making a decision. I would probably postpone that if I were you, Leo, until the latter part of June. Apart from that, it's a time to kick back. And I'm saying this for most signs. It's a time to just take some time out. It's a time to just kind of enjoy some downtime, some retreat, a holiday, just time at home. It's not that you don't want to do nothing, because Mars and Cancer, if you do nothing with that, it could just build up into this kind of frustration. And so you need to do something, but you don't need to overdo anything, I would say. So Leo, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time. For Virgo rising and or moon sign for June 2023, Virgo, your ruler Mercury is about to finish up in Aries. It's been in Aries for so long with the retrograde in your 8th house sign, which has created a lot of uncertainty and change and unexpected change, most likely in your life in more recent weeks. And so this is welcome. The fact that Mercury will move on into your 9th sign after the first week of June. By the 7th of June, it's in Taurus, where it will join the Sun, which is moving through your 9th house sign. And then by the latter part of the month, the Sun and Mercury will both move into your 10th house sign. So this is definitely a lot more sort of directed and clear about your direction in life in general, and travel and work and things like that, study and what you're doing can be more energized. And so you might sense this sense of vitality and energy coming in, especially by the latter part of June, I would say, because Mercury in the 9th is certainly a better place, but in its 10th sign, Gemini, its own sign, Gemini, for you, Virgo, this is a much better place in terms of work, in terms of just being clear about your direction in life again, and feeling energized and stimulated and excited again. And Mercury is moving very quickly again. It's really swiftly moving through Taurus from the 7th until the 24th of June, then moving into Gemini. So very excitable, very energized, lots to take advantage of here. The 9th sign is very much about travel as well. So thinking about that as a potential in June. And when we add the fact that Mars and Venus come together in Cancer in June, Mars is debilitated in Cancer, and so there's that to take advantage to be mindful of. Venus and Mars together in Cancer could be like overindulging and socializing too much, perhaps. Being really mindful of any kind of social engagements that could deplete your energy also, while you're maybe traveling, while you're maybe working or whatever you're doing now. And again, it's a very excitable energy, so that could be great, but not to overdo it. The ongoing Jupiter-Rahu conjunction, which are really coming together exactly by the end of May, beginning into the beginning of June, they start to break up by mid-June, and by the end of June, things can come more clear, but I wouldn't say it's very clear from the beginning of June. That's because Jupiter is exactly conjunct Rahu, the shadow of Rahu. And Jupiter, home life, relationships, it's in your 8th house of change. There are obviously changes going on for you in your home life and your relationships. And because its conjunction with Rahu now is overshadowing it, you might not be clear about those changes. And yet it could be a great time as well to have different perspectives on things and new insight into how to approach these things differently. I mean, your home life and your relationships specifically. But if you have any confusion around any of those things, I would say just be patient with it from the beginning of June until they start to break up by the end of June. And as I'm saying for all signs, really, I mean, it's a time to kind of kick back and enjoy maybe a holiday or travel, or have a retreat, even if you don't go anywhere, to kind of take some downtime. For you, Gemini, it's probably less like that and more about like a working engagement and travel for that reason, maybe, or wanting to do stuff. Even if you go on holiday, I don't know if it's a kind of a time for you to just do nothing, because of, again, the strength of Mercury in your 9th house and into the 10th house. This would be a better month, I would say, for you, Gemini, unlike other signs, to actually just or sorry, Virgo, for you to just maybe do something. So take some activities if you are going on a holiday, or just being mindful of your work and your direction and career prospects in general, I would say. So Virgo, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead, and until next time. For Libra rising and or moon sign for June 2023, Libra Venus has moved into Cancer, joining Mars, a debilitated Mars. So there's a bit of a passionate mix going on here that could easily lead to overdoing it. Something to be mindful of in terms of passions, we would say, because Venus and Mars is certainly a passionate duo, but because Mars is in its weakest sign in Cancer, it could lead to a depletion. So thinking about that, thinking about anything you're doing, in fact, because the 10th whole sign is very much about actions and career also, more specifically, and thinking about your career and your direction in life, and in your direction in life in any which way, really, because all of the 4 cornerstones of your chart are really impacted right now in terms of the self, home, relationships, career. You're really being asked to make some big changes here. So change itself takes energy. I know it can be energizing, like they say, change is as good as a rest. So that could be enjoyable for sure. But just thinking about how much change you can take on at this time and how much is good for you and how much is depleting you, I would say. Venus in Cancer is going to be a big player for many months. So it's just moved into Cancer in June. It will pass the point it will move back towards by the 19th of June. So by the 19th of June, it's going to that point where by September, it will return to. So here we have the 19th, 18 degrees of Cancer. It will move into Leo. In July, it will start to retrograde, and then by August, move back into Cancer, and then by September, come back to this point. So the reason I'm pointing this out now, Libra, is because whatever is setting up now, whatever situation you're setting up, whether it's work related or any kind of actions you're taking, anything you're doing right now, has to be revisited later on. And you're obviously going to go through a whole reevaluation of your direction in life and what you're doing and where you're going in life over the next few months. So that's something to just be mindful of really from June. The sun starts the month in your 8th house sign, and then by the second half of June moves into your 9th house sign, where Mercury will join it then soon after. So by the end of June, things are kind of coming more clear, I would say, for you, Libra. And the 9th house sign is very much about travel, which is really highlighted by many of the signs this month. A good time for those kinds of things, like taking some travel holidays and things like that. Or just taking a different route, a higher road, as it were. Ninth house is very much about the higher mind, wanting to broaden the mind, and travel is certainly one way to do that. Study is another way, and this could be something you're engaging with more by the end of the month. The ongoing Jupiter-Rahu conjunction in your seventh house, and so much that has gone on and continues to go on in your seventh house of relationships, is obviously having an impact. And the beginning of June is not very clear around those issues until really more so the latter part of June, when they start to break apart. So Jupiter Rahu conjunct, dealing with everyday issues, dealing with communication with your partner and things like that, and maybe conflict with your partner because it's the third and sixth lord in your seventh house, and in a way eclipsed by Rahu. There could be some issues around, and children, if you have any, just any kind of dealings with other people in general, even if it's not a partner, could be confused and not very clear at the beginning of the month. But that can come clear, and you can have new insights and new perspectives on your relationship and how you're dealing with other people throughout the month of June, I would say. So that combined with maybe a good time to maybe take a holiday, as well as, you're focusing on your career and direction in life as well, and the changes that are going on in your personal life, and getting that work-life balance right. All of that, there's a lot going on essentially for you, Libra, as in from then more of the signs. You have a lot going on, and so thinking about that again in terms of your energy levels, and thinking about how much is enough and how much is too much. So Libra, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. For Scorpio rising and or moon sign for June 2023, Scorpio, your ruler Mars is moving through your ninth house sign Cancer in its sign of debilitation, its weakest placement. And so even though this is Mars's weakest placement, and your energy might be under par, and that's something to really pay attention to, especially if you're overdoing anything and you're maybe traveling. Ninth house is very much about traveling. Or any kind of, expressing an opinion even. When we think about the ninth sign opposite the third, it's important not to overdo it. And we're recognizing where that overdoing it, whether on a trip, traveling, or whether expressing something, or whatever it might be, recognizing why you're overdoing it. Where is that coming from? And essentially it's coming from a place of lack, with Mars debilitated now. So Scorpio, it's a time to really be mindful of a sense of lack and not to overcompensate for that, but to also, not to just sit back and do nothing, because that allows the Mars energy to build up in maybe a more negative way where frustrations could result. So Scorpio, I would say to certainly do something with it, and maybe going on a trip, as I'm saying, from nearly all the signs. Maybe June is a good time to maybe take some time out, going on a trip, going on a holiday, taking some time out, even if you don't go on a trip, and maybe exposing your mind to something different, broadening your mind in some way. Now, travel is probably the easiest way to broaden the mind and to be more present in your life and not to overdo it. And going on a holiday is usually that. But as many people, who would say that about travel, would also maybe say that a holiday is very depleting because, they're so busy, they jam pack everything into a couple of weeks in the sun, and then they come back and need another holiday. So thinking about that in terms of your energy levels, I would say, Scorpio, not overdoing anything. If you do go away or do something, to not overdo it. Don't jam pack your schedule, I would say. If you don't go anywhere, don't just sit around and do nothing. Try and get out a bit more and try and have a different perspective on things. So that's what I would say about Mars in Cancer. It's joined by Venus. So Venus in the ninth house in June, that is certainly a good time to enjoy not just travel, but all kinds of artistic pursuits. And, even just going to an art gallery is a very enjoyable, mind expanding experience. So that could be really enjoyable too. But again, not overdoing anything. The sun moves through your seventh host sign for the first half of June, and then into your eighth host sign by the second half of June, where it will be joined by Mercury also. And later on in June, Mercury is very quickly moving through your seventh host sign also from the 7th to the 24th of June. So it's zipping through your seventh sign and then moving into your eighth sign. So this highlights this transition from your seventh to your eighth. So you're thinking about relationships. Obviously, you're highlighting relationships, focusing on your partner or others in general, but then also focusing on what you both hold dear, both of you, joint finances, resources, what you come together, what you value as a couple, or what you and any other individual value together, what brings you together and keeps you together. Obviously, the eighth house is not just what keeps people together, but also what breaks them up. So eighth house is very much about, looking at those things and looking at the depth of the relationship, and the intimacy within the relationship will be another key part of the eighth house to consider. The other thing that's happening as well is the Jupiter Rahu ongoing conjunction, beginning the month in an exact conjunction, but then breaking apart by the latter part of June. And that's a better indication and more clarity coming through the end of the month. So it's a process, I would imagine. You might be a bit confused about the details at the beginning of June, and then those details becoming more clear by the end of June. And the details, especially because this is happening in your sixth house, Scorpio. So although Saturn is looking on and maybe containing this, and home situations and all of that are going through their own changes, with Saturn now retrograding your fourth house, I would say that the sixth house matters in terms of everyday dealing with issues, dealing with the details, might not be clear until the latter part of the month. And to allow that to become clear, and to allow some new perspectives and new initiatives to to come forward, like to allow that kind of new spark and inspiration, I would say, to fuel something in you, Scorpio, because otherwise you could just get really confused about the details and not be clear about how to move forward on that. So Scorpio, it's definitely a time to take some time out. It's a time to maybe take a break. It's a time not to overdo anything, but not to do nothing, as it were, to do something, but not to overdo it. I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead, and until next time. For Sagittarius rising and or moon sign for June 2023. So Sagittarius, Jupiter is starting the month out in an exact conjunction with Rahu, the North Node, in your fifth sign. So this can be, a mixed bag. And, you'll hear Western astrologers say how amazing this is. And you'll hear Indian astrologers, Vedic astrologers talk about how dreadful it is. And you're like, well, which one is correct? And the fact is that they're both true. On the one side, it can be amazing because you get these new innovative ideas and inspirations. The fifth house is full of inspiration, and feeling that kind of spark of energy and vitality from that kind of newness. There's definitely something new coming in here. But on the other side of things, you could be completely lost. Fifth house is very much about how you see things, and Jupiter is about how you're clear about things as well. So when they come together, Jupiter and the fifth house are absolutely go hand in hand. But when you mix Rahu in the shadow, the North Node, it's just that you might not be clear about what you're doing. And decisions, especially, it's very much about decisions, Jupiter in the fifth house. And so not being very clear about making decisions that are going to have a long-term impact, especially because Rahu doesn't consider long-term. It only thinks about the immediate and wants what it wants. And it's a part of you and the third lord in the fifth house, a part of you that wants it and wants it now and wants to enjoy it. And all that's really good. And it can be really enjoyable. And it maybe could be too much of a good thing too. And so it's really important to consider, especially the beginning of June until they start to break apart by mid-June into the end of June, that you might not be clear about the long-term implications here, the long-term consequences. Now, thankfully, Saturn is continuing to move through your third house and keeping a close eye on these planets in Aries. And so Saturn in the third house is good because it gets you to look at the consequences, and I think that's going to contain things from you overdoing it, which is a positive thing. The other things that are happening is the sun is moving through your sixth house for the first part of June, and then moving into your seventh house the latter part of June. So the first couple of weeks you might be dealing with, everyday stuff, tackling all of that kind of stuff. It's your ninth lord traveling, so dealing with those kinds of issues, everyday issues while you're traveling. While the second part of June is in your seventh house, is probably a nicer indication in one way for travel. But certainly travel is something that I'm mentioning to most every sign in June. I think it's a positive thing to do. I think it's probably a better way of expressing these kinds of energies, especially the Mars in Cancer. So Venus joins Mars in Cancer, where Mars is debilitated and a bit spent. It's joined by Venus, which itself then could add further to that, and maybe some indulgences that maybe make you feel more spent. For you, Sagittarius, because this is the 8th sign, and because Mars, your 5th and 12th lord, in the 8th, is showing some changes. And again, adding to that, kind of not clear about the decisions you're making. 5th sign, but now the 12th sign, not being clear around those things either. 12th house is very much about surrender, release, letting go, retreating, going away. Again, maybe traveling as well, further distance travel, more retreat travel, as opposed to going on a short trip. 12th house could be that really losing yourself. So that's why I would say, again, overindulging would probably not be a good thing at this point, with Mars and Venus together in your 8th sign. But there might be that impulse to do that, to indulge something. And especially because of any sense of uncertainty, because Mars in the 8th sign in Cancer might feel uncertain. And if you feel uncertain, you might want to mitigate that in some way by indulging something. And it's understandable, but it just could end up then leading to further depletion. So thinking about that, even financially, thinking about how that's impacting you, whether it's energy or finances. So otherwise, I do think that June is a good time in terms of enjoyment, in terms of Mercury, which is moving on very quickly zipping through Taurus and making its way to Gemini by the end of the month. It's a very sort of stimulating time, I would say, a time to really enjoy some travel, like I said, but not to overdo anything. Okay, I hope that's been of help, Sagittarius. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time. For Capricorn rising and our moon sign for June 2023, we have your ruler Saturn about to station retrograde on June 17th. And so this is an important time to consider every year. It does it every year. It's not unusual. But it is the time, and a month especially, as Saturn appears to slow down and stop moving and slowly start to retreat, to do the same in some way, to slow down, to pay attention, and especially around that mid-June period leading up to the solstice on the 21st, that Saturn station could feel like that need to just slow down, pay attention to the impact that this is having in your second house. This is the first time that Saturn is properly, it has already last year, but this is the first proper retrograde in your second sign in a way, because it's remaining in your second sign. Second sign is all about family, finances, belonging, community, a sense of value as well, and self-worth. And thinking about these bigger themes around all of these issues will be important for the next few months. And so June is that time to really sort of look at this closely, because it really slows down and it gets you to pay attention on it and to reassess all of these big dynamics. As Pluto continues to transit through your sign, Capricorn, you're going through such personal, deep inner changes. And while you're doing that, potentially with Saturn now in your second house, shows more changes that are going on in your values and how you look at yourself and how you look at others, and um, how you accumulate things. The second house is very much about accumulation. So it's said to be like your bank balance, like, and resources that you have at your disposal. But it's about accumulating anything, really. It's about accumulating ideas, even. It's about accumulating things. It's about family. It's about all the things around you that support you. So thinking about these things as you're going through your own deep inner personal changes, I think will be important. The Mars opposite is one of the kind of stickier, perhaps, transits in June. There could be some bite in this. There could be some tension here with others, and with a significant other in particular. Mars in Cancer is debilitated, and it's joined by Venus in June as well. So it's a lot of passion that is experienced here, but it could lead to a fallout. It could lead to some sort of tension in your relationship in some way. Now, although Venus itself can smooth things out in many ways as well, with Mars still there in Cancer throughout June until the 30th of June, it could lead to this kind of tension and frustration and explosive energy. So Mars and Venus kind of just is very passionate. So if it's not expressed in a more productive, passionate way, it could be very destructive. So thinking about that, I would say throughout June in your relationships or any kind of dealings with other people, I would say, Capricorn. The other thing that's going on is the conjunction of the Jupiter Rahu and in your fourth sign. with Saturn in your second sign still looking on and really having a big impact on that. But the fourth sign is all about home and the changes that are going on in your home life. And from the beginning of June, because they're in an exact conjunction and it takes a while for them to break apart by mid-June to the end of June, there might not be a lot of clarity around that. Jupiter is very much about, a give and take for you, Capricorn, and you wanting to, instigate something, to do something, to make an effort to change something here. But at the same time, and it's great for that. Jupiter Rahu is a great time for instigating something and changing something. But at the same time, there might not be a lot of clarity. That's the thing. And that's the issue from the beginning of June more so until they start to move apart by the end of June. The sun moves through your fifth whole sign for the first couple of weeks of June, and then the sixth whole sign by the second couple of weeks. And then a week later, you have Mercury move into your sixth also. It's going to zip through your fifth sign. So Mercury is in your fifth sign from the 7th to the 24th of June. And so that can be fun, absolutely fun. The sun moving through there and then moving into your sixth. So there's a lot of stimulation going on with Mercury moving so quickly and then zipping into your sixth house by the end of the month. And it's about, yes, fun. It's about maybe enjoying yourself, but it's also about the details. It's also about the day-to-day stuff. And that's what the sixth house instigates by the end of June. And so with Mercury going into a very strong position in your sixth house, it's a great time to also take care of those details more so. With the sun lighting this part of your chart up again, and you experiencing that very dexterous, articulate, sharp and stimulating Mercury in your sixth sign. I think Capricorn, it can be a really good month for you to enjoy yourself and then to, plan some things and to get some stuff done. But as I'm saying with all the signs, it's important not to overdo anything. Also with the Mars where it is and, fueling this kind of fire now that could, burn itself out. And so being really mindful of that, especially around home dynamics and things like that and socializing in any kind of way, because Mars represents those things for you. But enjoying it as much as possible as well and getting out and enjoying things and finding your passion as well would be a very good expression of these transits while these changes are happening in June. And a lot of changes are happening in June. So Capricorn, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time. For Aquarius rising and or moon sign for June 2023, Aquarius, one of your rulers, Saturn, is about to slow down and station retrograde and appear to move backwards from June 17th. Your other ruler, Rahu, is in a conjunction with Jupiter, an exact conjunction from the beginning of the month in your third sign, where Saturn looks on. And so there's an interesting dynamic going on here for you, Aquarius, in terms of your sense of self and your sense of confidence and your effort in expressing yourself and doing something. And it could be a back and forth going on here. And especially with Saturn now stationing in June, really a sense, a need to slow down. This is the case every year, I would say, but especially this year for you, Aquarius, because it's doing so in your sign. Saturn retrogrades every year, but now it's stationing in your sign. It's a time to slow down, pay attention. What do you need to let go of? What do you need to finally get rid of, actually? Because Saturn, of course, is your 12th lord, and it's asked you to do that already. It's been moving through your 12th house for the last few years. Now it's in your first house and slowly stationing, going back again. And it won't go back into your 12th house, but again, it's just moving backwards. And that is this sense of letting go of something so you can move on feeling lighter. And when you move on feeling lighter and more energized, you have more energy to do more stuff, and you have more energy and more space to take more stuff on. So that's Saturn's retrograde in your sign. It's a slow month in many ways because of that. But thinking about that slowness as a time to let go, a time to release everything that needs to be let go of at this point. As Saturn looks onto your Rahu ruler in Aries and Rahu and Jupiter and all of these energies are very sort of impulsive, but also a bit sort of scattered. And it's important to kind of get more order and organization going on here. Jupiter Rahu, especially the beginning of the month, can create confusion and maybe not being very clear about, especially around earnings and things, because Jupiter is your second and 11th lord. It's very much about money and values and family and friends, all of these things that are important in sustaining you. And as it moves into your third sign about making personal effort, but conjunct Rahu, being maybe not very clear about the decisions you need to make around those efforts, or what to express or how to express it. There might be some confusion, in other words, at this time, and that might continue into June until they start to break apart by mid-June into the end of June. The sun moves through your fourth house sign for the first couple of weeks of June, and then into your fifth house sign by the second couple of weeks. And your third house sign is also where Mercury zips through from the 7th to the 24th of June. And so there's a lot of activity going on here in your home life. And your personal life is going to feel this, a lot of stimulation going on, and it can be very stimulating and exciting. And then as Mercury goes into your fifth house sign by the 27th, let me bring this back so it's your rising sign here, or by the 24th, pardon me. So from the 7th to the 24th, Mercury is in your fourth house sign, very stimulating in the home environment. Then it goes and joins the sun in your fifth house sign in a very strong position in its own sign, Gemini. And that can be a great time for enjoyments by the end of June, especially. Really, it's just enjoying whatever you enjoy, to experience this kind of sense of stimulation in a positive way. Now, enjoyments, as I'm saying, to all signs is an important thing to consider, because there could be some overdoing it as well, because Venus is joining Mars in June in Cancer. This is your sixth house sign, which is about having to deal with some problem, having to deal with some overcoming some issue, maybe some health issue, maybe some bad habit, maybe some diet issue, exercise, these kinds of things. Mars in the sixth house can show the impetus to do things, but in Cancer, it just doesn't have the energy, doesn't have the oomph necessarily. And it could lead then to experiencing like lack of energy and motivation. And if you're feeling a lack of energy and motivation, maybe go with that and recognize where that's coming from, and not overcompensate and overdo it and push too hard, where you end up even feeling worse. When you think about, if you have to take a lot of espressos, shots of, having coffees in the morning to get you going, that is in a way depleting you further, because it's just giving you a false sense of energy. So Venus and Mars could be a very passionate mix, but thinking about where you're, applying that, and thinking about putting your passions maybe in June into something more productive, to overcome something maybe that is a problem. And by overcoming the problem and giving yourself that, freeing your energy up and freeing all that space up in you as you're continuing to experience the Saturn now in your sign in retrograde, freeing some things up, getting rid of stuff. That will be a more energizing, I think, experience for you in June, Aquarius. Um, as I'm saying, for all signs, it's a time really, I think, to enjoy some downtime. But for you, Aquarius, more so probably it's a time to actually do some stuff as well, to take something on, to overcome something, to end something, to challenge yourself in some way, to improve something. And by doing that, you'll get more energy, as opposed to someone else who maybe will get more energy by just taking a time out and a holiday. Perhaps for you, Aquarius, it's a time to actually do something in June without, again, overdoing it. Okay, Aquarius, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead. And until next time, for Pisces rising and or moon sign for June 2023, Pisces, Jupiter, your ruler, is conjoined Rahu, has been for the last few weeks. Into June, we experienced this same conjunction, and it doesn't really start to break apart until mid-June to the end of June. And this can be confusing because your ruler, overshadowed in a sense by Rahu, can create this lack of clarity. And because it's happening in your second whole sign, which is very much around family and finances, and second sign is very much about vision as well, not literally just outer vision, like eyesight, but also inner vision, like a clarity to be able to see things clearly. And this isn't clear right now. So you might be making decisions, and especially personal decisions that affect you personally, and also in your career, especially because Jupiter is also your 10th lord. You might make a decision by this conjunction that in one way is actually sort of innovative and great, and it's like an out of the box kind of like, wow, this is great. I got this new idea and I'm going to go with this. That's Aries, second house, Jupiter, Rahu. But on the other side, there's the potential for being completely off and not being clear about it, and it having, as in the decisions you make around these important things, it having long-term implications that you're not aware of right now. So I would say, Pisces, as I'm saying for all the signs, to be really patient with it from the beginning of June until they start to break apart and more clarity can come forth then as Jupiter shines its light brighter, and that inner light more so with Jupiter, that inspiration and intuition, that clarity around what is the right thing for me to do here, whether it's financially, whether it's in terms of my family, whether it's in my work, whatever it might be. It just, I would say, give it a bit of time in June, Pisces. The sun moves through your third sign, whole sign, and then into your fourth whole sign by mid-month. So for the first couple of weeks, we have sun in the third, and this is about taking on something, making some effort. Then it goes into your fourth and taking maybe some downtime and home time, a time off. And this is what I'm saying for all the signs practically, is that, it is a better month really to take some time out. Not just because it's June, but because of the transits, they are more conducive to taking a bit of time out. And that includes the Mars in Cancer. So Venus joins Mars in Cancer by June also, and we have this conjunction of Venus and Mars, which can be very enjoyable and passionate. And in Cancer, it's certainly about taking a holiday. And in your fifth sign, an enjoyment for sure. But it's the issue here is overdoing it, overindulging, and then feeling more depleted because of this. And because Mars rules your second sign, as I mentioned, the Jupiter Rahu in your second sign of finances, this is an important consideration here that you don't overdo it. Even in terms of diet, the second sign is about diet, so you don't overindulge, and Venus and Mars can certainly be that, where you feel depleted because of that. So travel, overindulging, maybe when you're traveling. Mars is also your ninth lord, and it's debilitated in your fifth house. And again, in terms of decision making, I would say be really mindful that this might not be very clear. You might not be very, very clear about what decision you should make around all of these issues, whether it's travel and or money or family dynamics. But all of that does suggest wanting to enjoy something, and that is absolutely indicated. But just maybe not make any big decisions around things that is going to impact you for a long time. And that would be more so about finances. Like a holiday is a holiday, but if you're making decisions now that are impacting your finances for years to come, I would say maybe slow down on that one until later on in the month of June, if possible. But certainly there's a lot to enjoy here. Mercury is also zipping through your third sign from the 7th to the 24th of June, moving into Gemini, your fourth sign, its own sign by the 24th, joining the sun. This is all very enjoyable as well. This can be very enjoyable. Mercury zipping through a sign, third sign into your fourth sign, is about engaging more and socializing, and there's a lot to enjoy here for sure in June. But again, it's just overdoing it, overstimulating yourself, overindulging, and then depleting yourself in some way. And as many people experience on holiday, for example, where they spend too much and they do too much and they jam pack everything into a week in the sun, it's like, you need a holiday when you come back from that kind of experience. So just thinking about not overdoing anything, I would say, Pisces, whether it's energetically or financially, and likely both. So otherwise, enjoy. I think it's a great time to enjoy some things. So Pisces, I hope that's been of help. As always, I wish you the very best for the month ahead, and until next time.